would like to introduce Sarah, one of the founders of the collective.
The problem here is I'm actually a very nervous public speaker, so I wrote my comments down. So I'm going to do like this awkward kind of hold the megaphone like this while I do this. Okay. Hi, I just want to first start with a moment. Oh, thank you. That would be great. Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to start first with a moment of gratitude for Dex and the other young folks who organized this gathering today. So thank you. And of course, Daria as well, because I'm pretty sure when Dexy brought the idea in, Daria always supports good organizing and standing up for our community members. So Daria, thank you for providing that support to folks. It can be really hard, even as, you know, a white person, to stand up for justice, to be allies, to do the work that needs to be done to protect and care for our neighbors. So again, I'm really grateful, and thank you for inviting me. As Dex mentioned, I live here in Wakefield with my sons, Shane and Milo, and my partner. I'm a community and labor organizer, and one of the founders. There's 4 founders of the collective, as well as on the South Kingstown School Committee. And so for 20 years, probably like some of you, over some span of time, I've seen these moments of progress, right? Where you see real change happening in the world, and you're hopeful, because every day the work of doing the things we need to do to dismantle the systems of oppression and the way they impact our neighbors based on their identity, Asian, Black, Latinx, LGBTQ, these different identities, these different groups are really impacted more and differently than I might be, right? And so, you know, progress is important, looking for those opportunities is important, but there are these moments that break our heart. And so I really appreciate what Dex said at the beginning here about the experience when we all saw the brutal murder of 8 people, 6 women, Asian women, and really a rising sentiment that is in this country that is anti-Asian. And so as we gather, we group, we should look for the opportunities to make a better world. And nothing happens in a vacuum. So, you know, as we think about, I'm struck by this moment in time, right? We have a community that is healing from the recent racist anti-Asian violence. We have a history, right, in the United States. It takes nothing more than a quick Google to find a National Geographic article about our history of scapegoating and racism regarding lots of different identities, but including Asian Americans. And so in this moment that we're healing, that we're trying to be good allies, where we're seeing nightly on the news the brutal issues with our policing and justice system, specifically the way it targets communities of color, right? As we all watch and hope for some justice, a bit of justice for George Floyd. In this moment, there's also a bill that people are starting to talk about in our South Kingstown social media and across the state. And this bill, one of the sponsors is actually Elaine Morgan, Senator Elaine Morgan from down the street in Hopkinton, but there's 3 sponsors, and it's a bill that really is, as the speaker after Dex said, you know, part of what's happening here is what we're talking about is white supremacy, right? How we dismantle it, and the violence, the individual and the systemic acts of violence that happen because of white supremacy. And so it's heartbreakingly ironic that just last week, the House Education Committee in Rhode Island they heard House Bill 6070. And this is the bill that I mentioned with Senator Elaine Morgan as one of the sponsors. And really what it says is that our schools, they cannot teach about racism or other forms of marginalization or help students understand and examine systems of oppression and what we do about them. And the bill calls for an outright ban on teaching these topics, right? And identifies them as divisive concepts. And that I found the timing to be just ironic in an awful way. And I thought about what we did in South Kingstown this summer on the school committee. After students and community members came to us and made demands about how we advocate for racial justice and inclusiveness, anti-racism within our schools, one of the first things that we did on the school committee was to change what is a controversial or divisive topic. Because guess what? Race isn't. It is truth. It is history here, the ways in which systemic oppression and racism every day impact our neighbors here, across the state, across the country. And so I just wanted to remind us that there are the brutalities of racism, the brutalities of anti-Asian sentiment are unfortunately not just elsewhere. They're here too. And so I just look forward to seeing how we can together as a community, following and centering the voices of the people most impacted, working with youth and the youth organizers, how we can continue to defeat this House bill, make sure that our schools are more representative, more inclusive, project-based, and working with our neighbors and friends to really, truly care for each other, really embody a deep humanity, because we can support each other, we can lift up the experiences of those impacted by racism, we can lift up those impacted by anti-Asian sentiment. We have to. And there are groups in this state doing that good work too, like Arise. If you don't know Arise, look them up, donate some money, support their campaigns, ariseeducation.org. And I just think we have to every day find ways to build a new world, starting right here in South Kingstown, that dismantles these systems and the way they manifest and oppress our neighbors, and let our neighbors, family, friends who are Asian know that we care for them, we see their humanity, and we're planning to work with them for a better world. Thanks.